Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT Unit Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial to show you how to use my new fabric backdrops in Photoshop. I have open the backdrop I want to use and have open my image I want to use. Actually, I already did the selection, but all I did was go over here to your quick selection tool, go up to the top here and press select subject. And then you can use your plus or minus signs, zoom in and kind of select it to where everything that you want into your image is selected. And then I'm going to go up to edit and copy, edit and paste into my backdrop. And then I'm going to go ahead and resize whatever size you want your subject to be compared to the backdrop. And I want her feet are kind of going to show in this, so I want to do them in a way that, there we go. And now, first things first, make sure the light is coming from the same way, which it is. I do want to make my digital backdrop a little bit darker, so I'm going to go up to my curves here, and I'm just going to bring that down, match my image a little bit better, because I don't really want to make her any brighter. And then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to create a layer mask on my subject. I'm going to use actually a hard brush at about, I think 56% or 55 around there. I have to have it like 55, 50. I have to like have five in there. I can't do like odd numbers. And then black brush, and I'm going to zoom in here to her feet. And now I'm going to just brush off. I'm going to come right in where this piece of fabric is right here, and I'm going to brush that off because I want it to seem like she's standing behind that fabric. And now I'm going to use a soft brush, make it a little bit, or I'm going to keep it at 55%, but I'm just going to actually I'm going to lower it to like 25, and then just continue to kind of brush that off and feather that out so you can see. You can still see, but as the fabric gets a little thicker down here and further away from her feet, you wouldn't be able to see that as much. So it's a sheer fabric, so you'd be able to see a little bit of her legs, but not too much once you got down to down here. And then if you just want to touch it up in a couple areas so it's not as visible, you can do that. I can switch to my white brush and kind of brush anything back on that came off that I didn't want there. And then go around the image as usual. Like, see, there's a couple of hard marks here from the copy and paste that I did. So I would just go around with a black brush, 100% opacity, and just clean up those edges. I would take a little bit more time with this if I wasn't doing a tutorial, but for tutorial's sake, I'm just going to do a quicker job of it here. Real quick. That's why it's important it's better to over select when you're copying and pasting your subject onto a digital backdrop than not select enough, because you don't want to spend too much time. Also, her skin tone was pretty close to the color of the backdrop, so it's always a little bit harder in that case. I'm going to use a smaller brush and just clean up in between these tassels here. And you can just go back and forth between your black and white brush to clean those areas up. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time. Like, see this part right here? I would have to, since I copied and pasted, instead of going back and grabbing the copy and paste again to fill that in, I would just grab my clone tool and just fill that in like that. Go around the hair. You might need to just, I would go down to like 25, around 25%, and just do that little by little if there's color in there that you don't want that copied from the other other image. So just using my clone tool and my brush tool to brush in, brush off. Okay, and then if you wanted, you could create another layer above your backdrop on multiply blending mode at about 15%, I would say. And then grab a darker color in the backdrop by holding down Alt on your keyboard and clicking that with that dropper. And then you could add in some more shadow in there to create that shadow from the light coming from her, or the shadow coming from her, from the light, I'm sorry. And then you can create a layer mask if you need to brush it back off. I do 100%. I do not want it too much on the front of the backdrop right there. And then I would go in, I would create another layer above her, or just use my dodge tool actually to kind of make her a little bit brighter in some areas where the fabric down here is a lot brighter. As you can see, the feet, I'm looking at the feet down here when I do this, just to be sure that it's realistic in there. And then if you need to, which some of these backdrops already have some blur to them, I would go into the backdrop and I would only add just a tiny bit of blur, filter blur, Gaussian blur, and about 1.5, 1.7 is fine. Zoom out, and then you could, if you needed to change the color of the backdrop, or the digital backdrop at all, you could just create a hue saturation layer and play with that. If I needed it to be a little bit more red, or if I wanted it to change the color of it completely, you can do that as well, which I think I might want to drag it a little bit more to the red side, and that just changed it just a tiny bit. Another way, if you want it to kind of match the tones and you need to play with highlights or shadows a little bit more, or a specific part of the overlay, you can just create a new layer on color blending mode. Over here, there's more red in it than I want there to be. So I'm going to grab the beige over there and just paint that on, and then lower my opacity, and that got rid of that color that I didn't really want in there. And then if you want, you can go around the edge of the image, which I wouldn't for this one, but you can take your blur tool, smaller blur tool, and just go around the very edge and add, on your subject, and add blur to the edge of your subject. If you have some harsh lines that you don't feel like editing in or out, sometimes this can be an much easier way just to blend that without having to do that. But yep, that's one way to use it. Obviously multiple ways you can use these, but I like the idea of them standing inside of it and hiding their feet a little bit, and it blends a little bit more. Video photographer, I would love for you to join my group on Facebook. It is linked in the description.